الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون والحمد لله الذي من علينا بمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وبآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم ومبغضيهم وغاصبي حقوقهم من ليلنا هذا إلى يوم الدين صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Since this is going to be the final lecture in English, as it is usual for me not to speak on any subject on the nights of Ashura, except the subject related to the tragedy of Karbala itself. And the following night will be the night of Sham Ghariba, which again is the night of tragedy. So I wish to conclude that series with one of the most important part which I thought must not remain untouched. It might not be directly connected with the audience I see, but it can be directly connected with the audience which hears me. And that is about women in Islam. One of the most thought-provoking and controversial subjects in any organization, in any institutionalized religion, natural or revealed, we find that this is the subject which has always touched the soft, perhaps the softest part of human sentiment. And I believe, and firmly so, that unless something is done to see that the development takes simultaneously a shape within a society of humankind where men and women coexist, we are going to have a development which will be lopsided, and the result is going to be most disappointing. Napoleon, when he said, "Give me good women and I shall give you a good nation," he meant that the whole nation is composed of people who have been made of their mothers. And in Islam, the Prophet himself sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw that the rights and duties of women were well defined. In Medina, it was quite usual for ladies of Medina to come to Janabi Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha and ask her important questions related to fiqh. In fact, the Prophet used to direct the ladies to go to his daughter and ask, for the simple reason that there are certain questions which women can explain best to the women folk. And that is the reason why he prepared his own daughter, although we believe that Fatima Zahra was a ma'sooma and therefore her knowledge was divine. but he prepared her for the duties to be performed for the women of Islam. And there is a book known as Tarazul Mudahab, which is the biography of Janab Zainab alayhi salam, in which it is mentioned that when Imam Ali alayhi salam shifted his capital to Kufa, the ladies of Kufa used to come for the lessons in tafsir of Quran to Janab Zainab alayhi salam. Not only that, but it so happened once that Imam Hussein happened to be in the house when the lesson was going on, and Janab Zainab was teaching the ladies on certain particular masail of salat and namaz, and Imam Hussein alayhi salam heard his sister explain to the ladies the deeper meaning of Sami Allahu liman hamida. Sami Allahu liman hamida is translated as God has heard him and her who has praised him. But it has got deeper meaning, as we say it in every salat after ruku', as we stand up before we go to sajda. Janab Zainab was actually analyzing the whole thing, explaining the women of Kufa as to what is the deeper meaning of Sami Allahu liman hamid. So, to educate women, or to give them that part of knowledge which is essential in Islam, must first be understood before I proceed. The whole curriculum has been set by Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam. It is a mistaken concept among most of the women especially, that Islam does not encourage education for women. This has been made public, and rather a public knowledge, by the Western medium, who give examples of a haram in Saudi Arabia where they find women sitting as captures of the sheikhs, or who give examples of Alif Layla wa Layla, 1001 Night, the famous novel in the West of the days of Harun Rashid. And from there they try to impress upon the public that women in Islam are nothing but chattels for lust, that they are to remain uneducated and unlettered. And Imam alayhi salam says, Allimuhunna al-fiqh wa deen. The first thing is this, that teach them deen and fiqh as the child grows. For girls, the first thing is to teach her fiqh and deen, her faith and the masails which are related to her life gradually. As she grows, she must be taught earlier than the boys. And then Imam said, وَعَلِّمُوهُنَّ الْحِسَابِ, and teach them mathematics and arithmetic. Because it is very simple. If the wives did not know how to budget the account at home, husbands would go bankrupt. If the wife goes to the market, or any woman for that matter, goes to a shopkeeper, and after having paid for whatever commodity she has purchased, if she does not know how much change she must receive, and tells the shopkeeper, give me back whatever you can, and the shopkeeper decides that because she is a Muslim woman, therefore she is illiterate, that is going to be a shame. She must know how to calculate, and she must know how to budget. Imam said, teach her how to account. وَعَلِّمُوهُنَّ الْخَيَاطَةِ, and teach them how to stitch and sew. So that this is an art from which she can also maintain herself. وَعَلِّمُوهُنَّ الْكِتَابَةِ, and teach them how to write. So you cannot say that curriculum was not set out. It was set out from the very beginning, when Islam knew that the ladies and the girls must be educated. But there is a difference which I will discuss. In Islam, a woman has got to pass through 3 stages. One as a daughter, growing up to become a wife, growing up to become a mother. As a daughter, while Islam was in its infancy, please listen to me because this is going to be my last lecture as far as this series is concerned, and I want my mothers and sisters to hear me because I have received inquiries and I have received those inquiries with utmost of sympathy because I thought I must tell them what Islam thinks about them. The women who are sitting there up listening to me should realize that Islam holds them in the highest esteem. But not to that extent that tomorrow the husbands may not get their breakfast tea. Now, in its infancy, when the 4th surah was revealed, we know this, Quran Majid today as it stands, is compiled in such a manner that although the book and the content is the same and unchanged, but the order and sequence of surahs have changed, with longer surahs first and shorter at the end. But we know for certain, and all the Muslims are unanimous on this, that the first surah was Iqra bismi rabbikal ladhi khalaq, which is in 30th chapter. And the 4th was, according to most of the ulama, وَإِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُبِّرَتْ. And there you will find the 4th ayah, the 4th surah. That means I'm talking of the earlier days of Islam when the Prophet had just introduced Quran, and when the Muslims, the new converts, whenever they heard the surahs being revealed, they trembled with awe and fear. Today when we read Quran, we hardly take notice. Today when we read Quran, we are hardly affected except by the melody. But Quran has an effect upon the hearts. If it is understood, it has got an electrifying effect. And when it was revealed in those days, every time it was revealed, every time a new ayah came, non-Muslims and Muslims both were terrified because they heard the language and they heard the message and they heard the content, which was divine and spiritual. And in that surah, which was freshly revealed, while there were a handful of Muslims, there is an ayah, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. On the day of judgment, when those girls who are buried alive shall be asked, against what crime were you buried alive? وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. Why were they slaughtered alive? Now this was new. Social tendency of the people was to kill. You can't imagine the cruelty when alive a daughter is being buried. It happened. It happened. In certain qabilas who always considered birth of a girl as a shame. Quran says that in Surah An-Nahl. وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. When any one of them is given the tidings that at home a girl has been born, he becomes black with anger. يَتَوَارَى مِنَ الْقَوْمِ مِنْ سُوءِ مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ. With this news that he has received, he tries to hide himself and the news from the community. He is ashamed of revealing to the people that a girl has been born in my house. أَيُمْسِكُهُ عَلَى هُونٍ أَمْ يَدُسُّهُ فِي التُّرَابِ. Now he tries to decide, should he allow the girl to exist or should he bury her alive? أَلَا سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ. Allah says, be it known to you that they always took a very bad course of action. That means the buried. Here, when this ayah was revealed, the whole social setup was being challenged. And here, most of the ladies, non-Muslim ladies, elderly ladies, remembered their young days Many of them. Among them was the mother of Ammar Yasir, whose name in history is Sumayyah. When this ayah was recited in the house of Yasir and Sumayyah by their son Ammar, who was a young boy then and freshly converted Muslim. The parents were still not Muslims. When he came home early in the morning, and the old father says, Ammar, we have been waiting for you whole night, where were you? And he says, Father, a new surah has been revealed upon Muhammad, may I recite? And the father says, please do. And he recited this ayah, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. Immediately his old mother stood up, Sumayyah, and she started shivering because she said, I remember my own sister was buried alive. At that time, what she said was, Ammar, your mother would not have been here had it not been for some compunction and compassion that was shown by your grandfather. My sister was buried alive. I was saved. And I feel that in the message of Muhammad, there is an eternal truth, because we are also human beings created by one God. She became a Muslim on this one ayah, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ. On this one ayah, the lady becomes a Muslim. And not only that, but she and her husband, Yasir and Sumayyah, are the first shaheed of Islam. The first shaheed of Islam among the freshly converts are Yasir and his wife Sumayyah, the parents of Ammar. Ammar's father was strangled, but the mother was actually killed by a spear. You could hardly see such cruel events happening in any history. But the rights of women were promulgated by Islam systematically. So when the girls were being buried alive, we find there is a daughter entering a mosque, and the Prophet stands up and allows the daughter to come and takes his own place. And as long as the daughter is there, the Prophet is talking to her and telling her, Fatima, you are my part. Fatimatun bad'atun minni. Fatima, you are my part. And the Muslims used to see Prophet is standing up for his own daughter, allowing her to sit in his own place, and he is sitting next to her and talking to her. Those Arabs who are used to being cruel to their daughters had to revise their opinion. Although I believe that the Prophet stood for Fatima, not only because Fatima was his daughter, but because Fatima was the mother of all Imams. In her, the Prophet could see the root of Ismah and the promulgation of a line which went up to Imam Sahib al-Zaman alayhi salam. But do we realize, one point I want to render to these women who tell our ladies mu'minat that you have no place in Islam, that the challenge to the Prophet was that how can you have descendants when you have no sons? We read this Surah Inna A'tainaka al-Kawthar every time. Why was that surah revealed? Because the people used to taunt the Prophet that you have no sons and therefore your lineage will cease and you will have no descendants. Allah in answer says, Inna A'tainaka al-Kawthar. We have given you descendants in abundance. But let me ask, all the sons who were born died. The only surviving child of the Prophet is one daughter. And the line of descendants, all the Sayyids that we have today, come through Fatima Zahra. And on that Allah is proud by saying, Inna a'tainaka al-Kawthar. That Kawthar is one daughter who is Fatima Zahra sallallahu alayhi. If the answer to the challenge of the enemies is a daughter, Can Islam be blamed of having no place for a woman? Can we understand this? It was very easy for Allah to give him as many sons to survive him as he wanted. But Allah did not. In His ultimate wisdom, the lineage went through a girl, and all of them were known as the sons of Prophet. And the argument was actually discussed when somebody asked Imam Rida alayhi salam, can you say why you are telling us that Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein are the sons of the Prophet? They are the sons of Fatima, and you can call them sons of Ali, because they must be referred to father and not to grandfather maternally. And the ayah given is قُلْ تَعَالَوْ نَدْعُ أَبْنَاءَنَا وَأَبْنَاءَكُمْ. O Rasul, tell them on Mubahila, we call our sons and you call your sons. And when it came to our sons, the sons who were taken by the Prophet were Hassan and Hussein, to prove to the world that Hassan and Hussein are my sons. So the status of Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha proves the status of a woman in Islam. As a daughter, she enjoys all the honor and nobility. Allama Majlisi alayhi rahmah has written in his book Hilyatul Muttaqi that the Prophet said, for every father it is recommended that when he comes home in the evening after one day's full labor, that he should come back with some gift. Don't go empty-handed, okay? Now it might not be very easy. Days of inflation. It's not easy to buy a gift every day. But the best gift is that politeness and the smile hanging on your lips with which you enter the house. And those girls who had no room for inheritance before Islam, and I have my own observations on this, that even after Islam, there were so many civilizations who did not give right of inheritance to girls. Muhammad, the lawgiver of Allah, the lawgiver of Islam, is the first who decided that a girl as a daughter shall inherit. And then she grows up. Do you know one thing? The girl becomes baligh at the age of 9, and a boy becomes baligh at the age of 15. It should have been otherwise. For that delicate existence which is known as a woman, the responsibilities should have been put upon her at a later age. And for that sturdy and virile nature of a boy, the responsibility should have been put on him at the age of 9. But it is otherwise. It's only because of one principle, that Sharia of Islam believes that wherever there is an impending danger, it must be forestalled before the danger arrives. For a woman, in the eyes of Islam, is so sacred. Remember, when there is any sanctity, there is always a provision for disallowing desecration. Do you understand what I say? I can't go into details. When there is sanctity, there is always a provision for disallowing desecration. A mosque is sacred. There is always a provision for disallowing it from becoming najis. It is wajib fawri. Even if you are praying, if the mosque becomes najis, abandon your prayer and make mosque park. When there is sanctity, it must be always guarded. And it is the sanctity of a woman, because the nasl, the reproduction, the promulgation is through the mother, through the wife, and therefore it is sacred. There is a sanctity, and it must be guarded. At the age of 9, she is baligh. When she is baligh, hijab upon her becomes wajib, regardless of whether she has grown up into full womanhood or not. and then she becomes a wife. I have discussed this very extensively. But I must say that wife in Islam is not only a better half, as they say in English. You ask a European gentleman, not in these days. In these days, of course, they have got several names for women. But in those days, early days, if you ask, she is my better half, that means she's my wife. At the most, what he can do for her is that when there are two chairs, he will draw a chair for her and make her sit. That is one. And if there is a car, both of them want to enter, he will open one door, courtesy for a woman that she may enter. That's all. Apart from that, there is hardly any sense of respect for a woman in the West, for which I have got not one but thousands of evidences. So, a wife in Islam is one who has certain rights apart from the duties she performs. She has the rights. Let us understand this. I have said this repeatedly. You can't just come to us and say that because when she cooks she does not put enough salt, therefore I want to divorce. You can't say those things. Or that system of in-laws interfering into the system by becoming cumbersome to a wife because she is a newlywed is not correct. We must now abandon the ideas which we inherited from Hindus. The mother-in-law sometimes is envious of the daughter-in-law because she had suffered at the hands of her mother-in-law. It is but natural. When the mother-in-law has suffered when she was daughter-in-law, would like to avenge for all the ill treatment she received by ill treating their daughter-in-law that has come now. So we must try to understand this, that she has a right, and her right is to an extent that she can ask for full maintenance, to an extent that she can ask for a separate residence, a separate house. If she says, you and I shall live in a separate house, there is no harm. If she decides to stay in a joint family system, there is no harm. But if she wants to live, it is for the husband to provide for an accommodation. And she can also demand money for breastfeeding the children. As a wife, she can say, I shall breastfeed the child, pay the fees. And Quran says, pay. Because the child is yours, she is the mother. And the milk that she is going to feed is because of you. The labor is hers, therefore pay. I'm not trying to revolutionize anything. I'm not trying to revolutionize. Women have affection. They have love. The whole system in a family does not run on laws, it runs on love. And therefore, when she stands up in the morning to make a cup of tea for you, it is not her duty, it is her affection and love. When she stands up to iron your clothes, it is out of concern and love. So, marriage on both sides is not only give and take, it is more of giving than taking. If we understand that. So, wife has a right, and then she has not been given the right of divorce. The women have got an objection here. Basically, a woman has no right. Corollarily, she has a right. But I shall not discuss the rights that she has tonight. I shall only discuss why she doesn't have a right. Because Allah Himself created a woman, an emotional being. From her, Allah had specific duties to extract and to exact. Therefore, she is an emotionally affected being, and divorce is a matter of affection. and affection. If there is slightly an emotional misadjustment, the woman will be the first to seek divorce. Allama Hilli used to be a very busy alim, and whoever is busy knows, especially the Maulvis know very well, that the wife is always asking, are you married to me or to Kitab? Because the Maulvi is always reading and the wife is sitting. And someday the wife shall say, and she has a right to say, आपने शादी मुझसे की है किताब से की है, अगर किताब से शादी की तो हमको लाया क्यों घर में? She has a right to say that. But you can imagine what happens when a man is in scientific pursuit, when a man is in science, whether it is religious science or any science, then of course it is always some concentration to the expense of attention to the wife. He was writing a book, and the wife was all the time putting up with the situation. She herself was a mujtahid. But then she was a wife also. You can be a mathematician, a philosopher, but you are also a man, aren't you? Socrates had a very bad wife, and he was a good thinker. But the wife was always disgruntled and unsatisfied. Once he came home and she asked, have you brought those things which I asked you to bring? I forgot. So she started lecturing. And the man just listened, because he was lecturing outside. Now at home he has got to listen to the lecture. But he didn't move, just patiently listened. And the wife got so disturbed that she brought a pail bucket full of water and threw water upon him. Hey, you don't listen. Are you dead? I think you must be awakened. And the whole bucket full of water on Socrates. And he just looks and says, after thunder comes rain. So you never know. After thunder comes rain. You never know. Allama Hilli, his wife got disturbed. Somebody went and told her, do you know, your husband has already married again. And that was the end of the road. What she did was, she took all the books that he was writing and put it in the wells. Just revenge. When Allama came back trying to find where his papers are, saying, madam, where are my papers? Say, go and ask your second wife. But where is the second wife? She is just not there. Oh, I know everything you are trying to hide. I know what you men do outside. I am not doing anything, Baba. And the result was that finally when she was convinced, she was repentant. And it was then that Allama Hilli told her that it is for this reason that Allah has not allowed women to seek divorce, because they can be so easily emotionally affected. So it is for their own good that they have been deprived of the right, otherwise they would have been ruined. So the woman has no right, basically. Corollarily, I shall not reveal it, it's a secret. And finally comes a stage as a mother. The most sacred stage is that of a mother. When the Prophet said, Al-Jannatu tahta aqdamil ummahat, the Jannah is under the feet of mothers. Under the feet of mother, that means a disobedient child, especially that of the mother, shall not enter heaven, shall not be pardoned, shall not be forgiven. That is the mother. Uwais Qarani. Uwais Qarani is known as one of the companions of the Prophet. But do we know that he never saw the Prophet? He lived at the times of the Prophet, but he lived in Yemen. And he never saw the Prophet. Why didn't he? Every time that he wanted to go to Medina to see, to have a ziyarah of the Prophet, there was an old mother who would say, Uwais, if you went, who will look after me? I am an old woman. would you allow me to die? And what happened was that he wrote a letter to the Prophet, and the Prophet answered him to say that my ziyarah is sunnah and the obedience of your mother is wajib. So finally once Uwais Qarani was permitted, and the mother said, Uwais, you will go to Medina. You will go to Medina, you will visit the Prophet, but I don't allow you to stay even for one day. Just go, look at him, salam, greetings, and come back the way you have been without dismounting the horse. The order of the mother. And he came to Medina, and the Prophet was not there. The Prophet was in the battle of Uhud. Now he is not allowed to dismount. He asked one man, said, where is the Prophet? He said, the Prophet has gone to the battle of Uhud, and we have just heard that his 2 teeth have been martyred. The Prophet's 2 teeth were martyred in the battle of Uhud. And he started asking people, which side of the teeth? Which side of the teeth? Is it the front row? Is it the back row? Are there the molars? And nobody could answer. And what he did out of love, not that it should be done, but out of love and affection, what he did was that he took a stone and hit his mouth to break his own teeth. And he came back without dismounting, and told his mother that I have come back without having seen the Prophet, simply because you ordered me not to dismount. And just as the Prophet came back from the battle of Uhud, just as he reached Medina, the first thing he said, Inni ajidu, I can smell Raihat ar-Rahman min janib al-Yaman, I can smell fragrance of divinity, of grace from Yemen. And people said, Ya Rasulullah, what is that? He said, a man came to see me, but because of his mother did not dismount and went back. That is the mother. Whoever is blessed with serving his mother, especially when she is infirm, the Quran says, don't say uff. If there could have been anything smaller and shorter than uff, Quran would have even asked us to refrain from that. Uff. You just can't say uff to your mother. She may say something which you don't like. She may just come in your way when you want to go somewhere else. But that is a test. It is for us to understand. Finally, our 4th Imam was asked by someone. He said, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, I have taken my mother to Hajj 4 times. On my back. From Medina to Mecca. Not only that, I feed her the way she used to feed me when I was a child. She is very old, but she's alive. I feed her. I take morsels of food which are hard, bite them and soften them, and then I feed her with my own hand. And when I reached Kaaba, I did tawaf with her around Khana Kaaba. I took her for Safa and Marwa. I kept her as my own all the time. Have I repaid her? Have I repaid her? Imam said, you have not been able to repay the rocking of the cradle. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.